So, instrumentation, that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Now, what do I mean when I say instrumentation? Well, what I'm mostly referring to is how each instrument has a unique specific role it plays in supporting one another in a composition. So in the end, you end up with a piece that sounds very well constructed. You may be at a point where you have a couple instruments together and you know you want to start writing a piece, but aren't exactly sure where to place them in the composition, how to make sure the melody stands out well, how to make sure the music moves together well. Well, that's what I'm going to help you with. In this video, I'm going to use the 5 main instruments that I play as examples. I'm going to explain what they're each really good at doing and why it's important in a composition. And if you don't play these 5 instruments, or at the very least have access to them, I'm also going to give examples of instruments that are very similar to each of them and serve the same role just as well, so you can still make a composition. And in the end, I'm going to put all the instruments together and play a little song for you so you can see and hear how all the parts work together and how the instruments support each other. So, let's get started. The first instrument that I play and I'm going to talk about is the drums. Now, what are the drums good at doing in a composition? There are 2 main things that I'd say drums are really good at doing in a composition. 1, establishing tempo, and 2, establishing rhythmic feel. Now, tempo. What is tempo and why is that important in a composition? Well, what tempo does is it tells you how fast or slow a composition is. It helps to keep all the other instruments together and the song moving at a constant rate. Of course, during a song, the tempo can speed up or slow down, and all the other instruments and the supporting voices around the composition would do the same with it. That's why tempo is so important. Now, the second thing, rhythmic feel. Why is this important? I'd say rhythmic feel is important because it helps to establish stylistic identity or genre that a composition is. I mean, just by hearing a couple measures of a drum being played, you can maybe identify whether the style of the song is something rock or jazz or hip hop. The variations in the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, and all other components of a drum set are what make it able to establish a stylistic identity. Now, if you don't play or have access to a drum set, here are some good alternatives that can fulfill the same role in a piece of music. A cajon, a djembe, or maybe even something simpler than that, a simple hand percussion instrument, a cowbell, a shaker, or even a triangle. Now the instrument we're going to talk about is the bass, or more specifically what I play, the bass guitar. Now, what is the bass guitar good at, you ask? The bass guitar provides harmonic and sometimes rhythmic structure to a composition, depending on how it's played. With the bass guitar's ability to play really low notes, it has the ability to fill out the space amongst other instruments and voices. So, harmonic structure. What exactly is harmonic structure and why is that important in a composition? Harmonic structure is important because it helps to establish the mood by creating chords or the chord progression of a song. A little bit more on that topic later in the video. Now, the second thing I mentioned about the bass, filling out space. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Now, I mentioned that the bass guitar is really good at playing really low notes, lower frequencies that you hear. And when the notes ring out, it helps to fill out the space amongst other voices and instruments who maybe don't have the ability to play in such a lower range. Kind of helps a piece to sound more full and complete. Now, if you don't play or have access to a bass guitar, here are some really good alternatives that work just as well. Tuba, bass clarinet, trombone, euphonium, or baritone saxophone, or bari sax for short. So now we're going to move on to the third instrument, and that is the piano or keyboard. So what is the piano really good at doing in compositions? Well, honestly, a little bit of everything. But I don't think it'd be super helpful to just tell you that the piano's good at everything and leave it at that and move on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what I personally use the piano for the most in my compositions. Now, what I previously explained that the drums and bass do, providing rhythmic feel and harmonic structure, the piano can do those things really well. But there's 2 other things I mostly use the piano for when I go about composing music. And those 2 things are melody and harmony. So what exactly is melody and why is that important in a composition? A melody is going to be one of the main things that defines a song and gives it its identity. It's the part you're kind of left remembering the most after you listen to something. The second thing, harmony. When I say harmony, it's very related to what I talked about earlier and what the bass does. But what specifically the piano is able to do that it's really good at in supporting harmony is its ability to create chords. Now, what do I mean when I say a chord? I mean the piano has the ability to play at least 2 or more notes simultaneously. This is what creates a chord. And those chords have specific qualities to them that contribute toward creating the mood and progression of a song. The qualities could be major, minor, augmented, and I'll be sure to talk about more about chords and their qualities and how I use them in my compositions in later videos. But yeah, out of all the things that piano is really good at doing, melody and harmony are the two that I use it for the most. Piano is also the instrument that I recommend people start playing if they want to get into music and writing music, but don't exactly know what instrument they want to start doing it on or start playing to help them along the process. I totally recommend piano. It's able to do pretty much everything in music, and you can see and learn along with it as well. Now, if you don't play or have access to a piano, other instruments that are able to play chords and play melody and provide harmony just as well are guitar, ukulele, banjo, and harp. Though harp's probably going to be a little bit harder to come by, but it still does the same things as a piano just as well. Let me know in the comments if you play harp. I like to know of other harp players out there. I think it's a really cool instrument, and I'd like to be around it more. So the last two of the 5 instruments I'm going to talk about them both at the same time. And those 2 instruments are trumpet and trombone. Now, how do I use the trumpet and the trombone in my compositions, and what do I really think they're good at doing? Well, 3 main things: creating melodies, counter melodies, and harmonizing. Now, we've kind of sort of talked about melody before, but I'll reiterate it again just to remind you. Melodies are, well, a song's main defining feature, the part you remember the most. And that's why it's really important to have it. Now, I said harmonizing, but harmonizing is basically harmony. And we talked about harmony when we discussed the piano. Now, you may be wondering, you create harmonies when you create chords, and you create chords when you play 2 or more notes simultaneously. And you may be thinking, well, how do you do that on a trumpet or a trombone? Well, you kind of can't, at least not normally. So if you're going to harmonize and create chords with the trumpet or trombone or other wind instruments, you're going to have at least 2 of them total. Because of course, a trumpet and a single trombone can't play 2 notes at the same time. Now, if you don't play or have access to a trumpet or a trombone, good alternatives to these are, well, pretty much any wind or string instrument. Saxophone, flute, violin, cello, I mean, you name it. They're all really good at creating melodies and harmonizing if you have enough of them. Now, I also want to note, I'm mostly talking about instruments and instrumentation, but what with the trumpet and trombone specifically do really well can also be done with voices, like in a choir or a vocal line that's being doubled or something like that. Alright, so now that we've talked about the 5 main instruments that I play and my approach to discovering what they're good at and how they're used in a composition, now I'm going to show you what it all sounds like together with each of their parts being played together. So let's give it a listen. So there you have it. Hopefully this helped you to give some inspiration and direction on how to utilize the instruments at your disposal to start constructing a composition. You now kind of sort of have a behind the scenes look on how I approach creating compositions by utilizing these instruments for their strengths and how they're really good at supporting one another. So that's going to do it on my video for instrumentation and how to use instruments to have them work together, support one another in creating your compositions. Leave a comment down below if you have any further questions on things I maybe didn't cover in this video, or if you found it helpful and feel inspired to start making your own compositions. So stay tuned and I'll see you guys in more composing videos. Take care.